You gotta keep this focused.
Everyone has a unique gift, and Mike, the creator of the One Life podcast, believes most people don't know how to use their gifts or what they are. Mike wants you to see things from a different perspective and be true to yourself. The One Life podcast unites the world through art, fashion, music, and film. It inspires, motivates, and creates positive energy, love, and compassion to all communities and creates an equal playing field for all. On the One Life podcast, they cover topics like building relationships, overcoming adversity, habits of healthy people, and much, much more. We only have one life to live. Be yourself and live your truth. Add the One Life podcast to your playlist. That's the number one NE Life. Available on Spotify, Amazon Music, Apple Podcast, and your favorite podcast platform.
What's up, y'all? I am Mike MIC Reed, and this is the One Life podcast, where we talk about positive psychology while taking care of our well-being and telling your story, because everyone has an amazing story. And in the studio today, we have Lisa Sarno, executive coach, motivational speaker on leadership, positive psychology, and organizational consultant.
Oh my!
Did I miss anything?
No, you got it all.
Actually, you do have more titles. I just didn't want to write it all. I got that from your LinkedIn page.
Oh, okay.
You do have a bunch of titles.
I do, right? That talks about how long I've been out there. You know, how much experience that I've had in the past. And so, I mean, I've been blessed.
You have been blessed.
Yeah, I have been blessed, and I really do feel that way.
You know what I tell people when they say, "Who is Lisa?"
Uh-oh.
Because I never really know how to answer that. I say, you know what? I look at Lisa as the fixer.
Oh, you know what? Thank you for saying that.
Like when all the political people and like the whole area has problems, they go to you.
You know what? Thank you. I have been known to be sent into problematic situations and have been asked to make it right or make it better, right? But as a fixer, if that's the path you follow, and I know there are other people out there that do that, it's not always an easy one.
It's not. I was just about to make that comment. Like that's a specific skill set that like maybe 0.1% of the people in the world have.
Well, you know what? I started doing that not by choice. It was basically something that I fell into and was asked to do, and without realizing it, that ended up being the path I took. And when you're asked to go into problematic situations, I think you probably recognize this, Mike, you're going into something that, might be a little messy.
Yes.
And so people don't like the fact that you're coming in and shining light on what they either didn't do or the things that they shouldn't have done. Right? And so, of course, when that happens, you as the person that's in there trying to make it better, they have to make it about you, because if they make it about you, then, it diverts and, basically redirects anything that's being talked, shown on them as far of what they didn't do. So, to all of you out there that are fixers, thank you very much. And thank you for all the work that you do, because I know it's hard. It's hard. But you know what? You guys are important, right?
But, I mean, we're including you into that, too, because you are important and you're good at it.
Well, thank you for saying that. But, here's what I'm going to say. Every situation's a little different.
Yeah.
And every situation, with respect, I can't speak for anybody else, but I know that every situation that I've been asked to kind of go into or that I've worked on, I've had to learn lessons. I've had to grow. I've had to learn things that I didn't think I ever would, have the opportunity to find out about.
But you know what I've learned about you, just by hearing you speak, and I've heard you speak on a couple of occasions, is that, and this was, in my opinion, what makes you great is that,
oh my goodness,
you can adapt.
Flexibility.
You have that flexibility. You can adapt in any situation.
Well, you know what? I think everybody has the ability to adapt. It's whether or not they want to, right?
True.
Everybody has the ability to be a good leader. It's whether or not they recognize what they have to do to be a good leader, right?
True.
So, I mean, thank you for saying that. And I'm kind of getting a little shy here because you're
right.
It's true. I mean, you're being really, really kind to me. So thank you. Because
I've never been kind to you.
No, I'm talking about in general. Oh my God, Mike. I'm talking about in general. I mean, it's not often when you do the kind of work, when you're out there doing work, that you don't always get, if you will.
Oh yeah, I get it.
The gratitude, right? So thank you very much for saying all those nice things about me. I really truly appreciate it.
Well, no, I mean, I appreciate you because you've been an inspiration to me. Because you was part of the first cohort out here in the CAP program, and I'm part of the second one. And ever since the first time that I heard you speak at our class, you just stuck out, and I just connected with you.
I stuck out like a sore thumb?
Well, no, but it's like how we was talking off air about how, and even what you just said, most people don't know what to do in the leadership roles, right? They don't know what comes with that. Everybody wants to be a leader, right? But as far as the work that actually comes with it, they don't want to do.
Well, you know what? Like I said, I mean, every opportunity is an opportunity for growth. And we hear this all the time, but it's absolutely true. If you stop learning, you stop growing.
True.
And so every situation you're in, there's always a lesson to be learned. And whether or not you can actually see that lesson at the time, it may be that, you're in a situation where you can't actually see that lesson at that moment.
Right.
Right? But then afterwards, you're like, oh, the light bulb went on. You went, oh, okay, now I get it. And then you can utilize it for the next situation or the next adventure that you kind of undertake. Right? So we have a lot of, like I always tell everybody has the ability to be a leader. And, everybody has the ability to be a good leader. It's really up to the individual what kind of leader you want to be. And a lot of people, Mike, don't even understand there are different leadership qualities.
Right.
There's different leadership styles, right? And you have to figure out what your own leadership style is. And some people like to be at the front.
Some people just want they just want the title.
Some people do. But there are others that lead from a quiet place.
Right.
Right? And so that's always, but it depends. Like, I want to ask you, what kind of leader do you think you are?
I don't know. Because I don't consider myself a leader.
Okay, well, see.
Remember, it's never about me. I preach that a lot. It's never about me.
But it is about you, too, because you're in the situation. You're there for a reason.
But you know what? This is where I see myself like you. It's like the first time I heard you speak at our class, right? I think Lewis had said, I think it was you and maybe 4 or 5 other people from your class. And when it was time for you guys to speak, everybody just kind of looked at each other. You was the first person, and I'm kind of like this. You just like, well, I'll go first. Like, you just jump into it. Like, no hesitation. You just go, right? That's how I am, especially like when we're in a group settings. Like, I've always been the guy that, when you go to an event or whatever, and you with a group of people, or then we're in a parking lot and people say, okay, what's next? And everybody just kind of look at each other. I'm the one that's always jumping, okay, well, let's do this. I start throwing things on the table.
Well, you know what? And that's you play a very important role. I think part of it is that when you're asked to do something like that, or when people ask you to speak or to take the lead, I think I'm like you in the sense that I always wait to see if anybody else wants to do it, right? And if there's a hesitation or pause and there's a reluctance, then yeah, somebody needs to take that first step, right? And so it doesn't mean that I can't speak for you, but it doesn't mean that I need to take the first step, or that I'm always wanting to take the first step, but it doesn't mean that I can't.
Right.
Right? So a lot of people sometimes misunderstand people who are out there that are leaders that don't take immediate step forward. And, that's a good thing, though. That's because they're waiting to see who else they can support that's taking a leadership role. You don't always have to be, I feel, you don't always have to be at the forefront to be supportive, to be, if you will, a leader. You can support the person that's in the lead.
Yes.
Because a lot of times they're going to need the help, right? They're going to need that support. So, it also depends on any situation you go into. If you're at the front, sometimes you get all the arrows, right? So sometimes you need to be able to support that person that's up in front and help them when they're getting all those arrows. But I find it in a lot of situations, and this happens a lot in the political world and also in community service. Sometimes when leaders get into trouble, a lot of people kind of disappear, right? And then they're out there by themselves and without a life raft.
Right.
And, that's kind of unfair. I think that's kind of unfair. You got to support those people that are willing to take that step forward.
And you know what? And I felt that in my production days. I remember I had a team of people that I used to work with, and there's one individual actually, and he kind of spreaded it. He used to get mad at me because he would always say, "Why does everything have to be my way?" And one day I had to have a meeting and explain it to them, like, listen, it never has to be my way. But whenever there's a problem, no one speaks up. So I'm always the one that's like, okay, well, here's a solution. Not saying it's the right solution, but this is the only way I know how to do it. Now, if you have a better solution, put it on the table. Let's talk about it. But no one put anything on the table. I was the only one that put something on the table. So if I'm the only one that's putting an option on the table, then that's what I'm going to go with.
Well, what you were doing is you were giving people options, right? But sometimes what happens is people decide, and I found this to be the case, not all the time, but occasionally you find the case where they probably have another way to do it, but taking responsibility for having to do it that way, right? And being accountable.
Yep.
Right? So I always used to share with the folks that I work with and teams that I worked with, I always talked about the RAAs. And the RAAs are responsibility, accountability, and then authority, right? You got to have all three to make something happen, truly make something happen. I mean, if you have the responsibility, you're going to be accountable.
Yes.
But if you don't have the authority to make it happen, what happens? Nothing.
Nothing, right.
Nothing. It's like, make sure you have all three. For those of us that are leaders out there, you got to make sure that you have all three, right, in order to be successful.
I guess, yeah, because I wasn't afraid of taking accountability. Like, if it didn't work, it didn't work. Okay, but at least I tried. At least I did something. I just didn't sit there. Like, you know what I mean? Because if we all just sit there, then nothing, it's 100% nothing's going to happen.
Yeah, and that old adage, how do you know success without failure?
Right.
So you got to try, and even if it doesn't work, you try again.
Yeah.
You take the lessons from the first time.
Learn the lesson, right.
And then you try again. And if it doesn't work a second time, then you keep going until something actually happens, right? But, we're human, and I certainly am. And so, at times it can be really daunting and become overwhelming, especially when you're in that situation where you've tried a couple of times and it's just not working, right? And that's happened. I think that's happened to a lot of us. But then I call it hibernation. I tend to take a step back and I hibernate for a little bit. And I kind of look at and analyze everything that didn't happen, that should have happened. And then I'm like, okay, let me take the time to regroup. And then you come back. But I think a lot of times people forget that it's okay to kind of take a step back sometimes. Just don't stay there.
Yeah.
Do not stay there, right? So I have a question for you, Mike. So what was the best thing, what was the one aha epiphany moment that was the best thing for you from the second cohort, from the classes, from the Wellbeing classes?
I'm not sure what's going on right now. Like, you're the second person that started asking me questions. I'm supposed to be asking other questions.
Well, it's a shared situation right now, right?
What's my aha?
Yeah. What we've had many in those classes. We've had a lot of ahas. But what was the one big one for you that you'll never forget?
Oh.
It's kind of hard being on the other side, isn't it?
It is. The one big aha moment for me, I want to say that when I really started using the tool of asking myself, okay, what went well today at the end of the day? And by that, I really started putting myself first.
Okay. When you say, you mean the little moments that actually worked, and then if you put them all together, it ends up being that little. Together. It's a big deal. So your day was better than you thought it was.
Better than I thought it was. And by that, I really started, because remember, before the class, I never put myself first. Like, I've always struggled with it. I always put everybody first. I was that fixer guy, right? But then I took the class. And even when I went into the class, my mindset of going into the class was, okay, I'm going to learn this positive psychology and I'm going to help everybody and, I'm going to change the world, right? But then halfway through it, it was like therapy on steroids for me.
Really? Okay.
Yes, 100%. Like there was a time where I wanted to quit, but then I was like, no, because I saw the light at the tunnel, and it really made me realize that no, I have to put myself first. I have to have boundaries now.
And was it hard?
Yes.
Why?
Because I was so used to helping everybody else. Like, because I never, like I was just saying earlier, like, it's never about me. Like, you know, because I'm so wired on helping everybody else. And I think it comes from my childhood when I was always in search of that love and being positive and being good, because I grew up around so much negativity and violence and just this negative space. But I always knew that there was a better space out there.
And so you wanted to help create that better space.
Yes.
You know, have you found, just real curious, but in the work, you know, in the decades of work, I'm not going to date myself or age myself right now, but in the decades of work that, you know, in being out there, I found that a lot of people who are committed to community work in some ways may have gone through, if you will, challenging situations themselves. And so therefore they don't want to see anybody else have to go through the same thing they did.
100%.
So that's the commitment, right, that they have. And it's kind of like you were talking about, you put them first versus yourself first, because you don't ever want somebody else to have to go through what you went through. Is that kind of what you're talking
100%,
about?
100%, yeah. I don't want, especially my kids, like the way I was raised and you know, grew up, I never wanted my kids to go through or felt what I felt. Like it was just a horrible experience. And I think I did a great job with that, me and her mother. And just anybody in general too. But it was mainly my kids, but yeah, everybody in general. Like I didn't want to recreate that space.
So share with me one of those positive moments when that happened for you, when you put somebody else first.
You need your own podcast. You know that, right?
No, I'm interested in hearing, you know.
When I put someone else first?
Yeah. Tell me one of the best things that ever happened to you where you felt like you fulfilled that commitment to service, that you really helped somebody else, you know, get something done. There's probably plenty of them, and you're probably thinking about all of them right now, but just pick one for me.
Doing this show.
Okay.
Honestly. And this it was really getting comments from in the beginning of doing this show. I was getting comments from people saying, hey, I really needed to hear that today. And that was like me just being honest and authentic and just talking, having a conversation. And for someone to say, wow, I listened to your show and I thank you, like I needed to hear that today, was fulfilling for me. Because I made a difference in someone's life that day.
And that's why you continue to do this.
Yes. 100%,
even though
100%.
Sometimes it can be challenging, right?
100%. I wouldn't even change it.
So thank you for doing that. And for all the listeners out there and all the people who watch your podcast, on behalf of them, thank you, Mike.
Oh, thank you.
Absolutely. I mean, you know, it's hard when you know, there's lots of obstacles in your way to continue to do something. But because you love it and because of what you just said, there are people that are listening and they're saying to you, thank you, because they needed to hear that. You know, are you tearing up on me?
Oh, my God. You're not supposed to be looking at me like that, Lisa. I was just about to say you're about to get me all emotional
don't do
over
that,
here.
because I'm going to end up getting emotional, and that's not what this is all about. But you know what? Seriously, thank you.
No.
You know, I mean, not everybody has the fortitude to keep going, right?
No, I mean, it is hard because we still, and I was talking to one of the sponsor of the show earlier about that, is that our struggles never really go away. Like, we still going to always have triggers no matter what, because we can't control other people or the world. Like, we're going to continue. We're in this world with 8 billion people. There's going to be struggles and adversities. And so they're going to be triggers throughout the day. And how do you overcome that?
Some days we do, and some days we don't.
Yeah, some days we do. But even on the bad days, we accept it, we embrace it, and we get through it the best way we can.
And you're absolutely right. But to be fair, it's not always easy, right?
It's not.
No, and sometimes, you need another person to say, you're okay.
Yes.
You're doing all right. It may be a little tough right now, but you're gonna be all right. We don't always have that person though.
Yeah, we don't.
I mean, we have family, it's true, and we love them, and we have good friends, but every once in a while, you just need a stranger to come up and say, you're doing okay. They don't need to know everything else. They just need to know one thing about you and just tell you, you know what, you're doing good. And that sometimes for me is like, oh, somebody noticed.
Yes. No.
Somebody noticed that I'm really okay. Thank you for saying that, right? I'm okay. I really am okay. And for me, during the first cohort of the Wellbeing, and thank you, City of Palmdale,
Yes.
the biggest aha moment, and I know a lot of my, classmates have heard me say this millions of times, and also when we do workshops with students now, this is always my kind of visual for them, my analogy for them. There was a map, you recall, there's a detour map. Did you guys see that in your second cohort?
Yeah.
Yeah, where you can have a certain frame of mind, and then you can take that detour and get off. What I
It's
share,
called the choice map.
yes.
Yeah.
I call it the detour map.
Okay.
And what I tell the young folks in the schools when we do the workshop, the Wellbeing workshops, is, the visual is, for me, it was easier for me. My mind is like a freeway sometimes. And it's got so much stuff. It's got so much traffic in there. All the stuff, in these lanes. And it's bumper to bumper traffic. I have a choice of staying in that traffic or taking that first exit. Inching towards that first exit and getting off that first exit, right?
All right.
And I tell myself, and I share with the students, if you take that first exit, you probably will. It may take a little longer because you're taking some detours, but the reality is it's better than sitting in bumper to bumper traffic with all this stuff swirling around in your head, because the scenery is probably prettier.
Right.
It's more idyllic, and you're going to be more peaceful because you're not sitting in a bumper to bumper traffic, and your mind is kind of like that. And so sometimes we can I find myself getting stuck in the freeway that is my mind with all the stuff that I need to do, right? And thinking, how do I get out? What do I need to unload? What do I need to unload so that I can actually start moving forward?
Right.
And I start looking for that exit. That was the one thing that, for me, was the true aha moment in the Wellbeing courses and the Wellbeing class for me, is when I realized, you know what? I can reframe this for myself. I don't need to be stuck. And every time I'm on the freeway now, the freeways, right? Oh my goodness, you can get stuck for an hour from here, from Palmdale to LA, right? So now it's like, you know what? I'm going to take that freeway. I have my phone, my Google's map. Let's see what other scenery is out there. So I actually do use it also when I'm in the car. But when I share that with the students, I can see that they get it.
Right.
You don't have to be stuck in your own head.
Yeah.
You can find a way to have a more peaceful and calm situation for yourself. Yeah. And that is something that I think a lot of us don't do for ourselves.
Right.
We get in the cycle.
I think in that case, like, I think I was very blessed at a young age to, I think, understand that. Because being on my own since I was 14, and the neighborhood that I grew up in, like, I didn't like it. I was, for some reason, I don't know where it came from or how, but I was smart enough to say, you know what, I'm going a different route, different path. I don't know where I'm going, how I'm going to get there, but I know it's better than just sitting here and staying here. I'm going to go create my happiness.
And that's the most important thing. We have choices, right?
Right.
But sometimes I think for our younger folks, sometimes we have to share with them what some of the choices can be for them.
Yeah.
Right? And I think one of the things that, I don't know about you, but I think even leaders, today, they have a situation where it's called smiling depression. Have you ever heard smiling depression?
No, but I could probably relate to it.
Okay.
I smile at people's face all the time, but it's like I'm
well, you know what?
dying in the inside.
We have a lot of folks that, actors, celebrities. Robin Williams was one,
right? Yeah.
Jim Carrey's another one. And, a lot of them smile through their depression. So the whole world thinks that they're doing great.
Yeah.
But personally, they're truly struggling. And, I find that a lot with our leaders, our political leaders. They're great at making speeches. They're great at what they do publicly, but privately, they're really suffering.
Yeah.
And our kids are the same way, right? And what are the reasons? Because one, they don't want to feel like they're being a burden to other people. Two, because if you're in a job situation, you don't want your bosses to think that you're not capable of doing the job. And three, it's just they may not even know themselves that they may be going through a depression, right? So they're smiling through it because they think that's how they're going to get through it.
Right.
And so I think that a lot of I've learned over the course of the last several years that is something that a lot of people don't even recognize, that they may be going through it themselves, and they're really struggling, but they don't want to tell anybody.
Right.
So when they're out with their friends, when they're out at work, when they're in school with their their classmates, they're smiling away and pretending they're really okay when they're not.
I went through that I think my whole most of my life, until I finally went to therapy, and my therapist opened my eyes to it.
And what was the one thing that your therapist said to you that really made sense to you about that particular situation, about you having smiling depression? How did they tell you? So we're talking about it, but share with me how you get out of it.
How do I get out of it?
How do you make yourself better when you have the smiling depression, as I smile?
Now?
Now.
I have my jolts of joys.
There you go. Okay, and just remind everybody what jolts of joys are.
It's if you love eating chocolate ice cream that makes you happy. Like if you love reading a book, going on a hike, going on a long drive, the little simple things in life that you can go do to bring you back into that space that makes your eyes sparkle. And
did you understand jolts of joy before you took the class?
No.
Right. Me too. And once that happened, it was like, oh, okay. And it's like what you said, you write down at the end of the day, right? All those little things that worked out right, that were your jolts of joy. And I share that too with the students that we do the workshops with. It's like, your day wasn't so bad.
I tell people that all the time. I say, start off with the simplest thing.
Yeah.
I woke up today.
Exactly.
I slept in I slept in a bed. I had a roof over my head. You string all those little things together, and it's like, oh yeah, that little problem is now, that big problem you thought it was is now a small problem.
Okay, sometimes yes, but you know what? Here's the thing: the big problems, again, they may be huge, but when you string all the little jolts of joy together, your day really wasn't that bad.
It wasn't, yeah.
And so, I mean, I know that I keep a little notebook beside my bed now. And I write down 10 things. I put a minimum of 10 things before I go to bed, right? Of things that were good. And just little things. It could be, you know what? I didn't have a hard time in traffic today. I had my favorite tacos, right? Or my cup of coffee was really good this morning, right? I enjoyed my fur babies, right? I came home and it was unconditional love and they were so happy to see me. If I start looking at that, I go to bed every night now feeling better about myself. And it's funny because I've really had to train myself to do that, though. It doesn't come naturally.
Yeah, it don't.
It's like it's the tiny habits, right? You got to make that a tiny habit.
Yes.
Yeah,
and you have to anchor it to something.
Yeah, and thank you, Louis, Laura, and Talma.
Absolutely.
For sharing that with us, right? I mean, and the more we can tell people about that, the better, right? But again, there's a lot of people out there that might be next to you, and you probably talk about this on all your, a lot of your shows. But that smiling depression is very real.
It's real,
right? And people are joking around, and they seem like they've got great energy, but they may be really suffering.
And one thing I learned in therapy is a lot of these people, like including myself, like I didn't know it at the time. Like I didn't even know that's what I was doing, because I had thought that I buried things and put it behind me. I was like, when he first asked me about my mother and my childhood, I was like, oh yeah, that don't bother me. Like I don't even think about it. But he said this quote, and I have it in one of my journals on. I gotta find it somewhere, because it's something that really stuck with me, even though I can't remember what it was, but it was similar to, he said, buried thoughts or something never die. And when he explained that to me, he was like, yeah, you may have buried those feelings or your thoughts, but they're still alive. And he said, he said at some point there's going to be an explosion. The longer you hold it in, the bigger the explosion.
Can I share with you? It's absolutely true. You know what I call that? I call that my generational baggage, right? I mean, not only do I have my own baggage from my own childhood, from my own adult life, right, that I'm carrying that, I need to kind of work through, but there may be, situations that that was put on you, if you will, or shared with you while you were growing up from your parents or even from your grandparents or from people around you. And all of a sudden, you're carrying all that. Yeah. It's you bury it. It's deep down inside, but it follows you into your everyday life as an adult, right? And so, generational baggage for me is it's like these major, trunks that they had in the old days, right? It's not the kind where you have the wheels.
Oh yeah,
the luggage where you can wheel through the airports, right? These are these steamer trunks, what I call steamer trunks. Yeah. And once you are able to dig down deep and find some of those buried steamer trunks and haul it to wherever you need to haul it and start unloading, boy, you feel a whole lot better. But you know what? You have to understand that you actually are carrying some of that stuff, right? The problem, I don't know about you, but the problem for me was I had to figure out that I was actually holding on to this.
Yes.
Right? And I didn't even know that I was.
I didn't either. That's what I'm saying. I didn't know I was still holding on. I literally thought I just buried it and it was just done.
Well, it's taken me decades to figure out I really needed to unload. Yeah. Right? To deal with my own baggage, right? I had to unload some of the ones that wasn't even mine.
Yeah.
And I had to figure out part of the hard part is figuring out what it is. Yeah. Right? Because we've buried it so deep, we don't even understand how it's impacting us at this point in time.
Right.
Right? So we're talking about this and everybody's probably thinking, well, how do I figure out what baggage I'm carrying?
Right.
Right? So what would you say to them?
Asking me all these hard questions. I'm not used to this.
Am I? Well, this is a shared conversation, right?
I mean, yes and no.
Share with me, Mike. What would you say to people? They say, "Well, I don't even know what that is. So how can I figure it out? How can I find out?"
It's having a conversation with somebody, talking about your past and your experiences, and through these conversations, it'll come out.
Okay, and what's that safe place? What's that psychological safe place for you?
My psychological safety space? Mm-hmm. What do you mean?
So where is your psychological safe space where you feel you can actually talk about these things?
You don't know?
No, I'm asking. Here. Okay.
On this show. That's why I do this.
Okay.
This is my psychological. Like, I feel like I can talk about anything, and I have been open and vulnerable and honest about everything.
And for everybody, it may be different, right?
Right. True.
And, I share this with some of my friends, and they laugh at me. But it's like my psychological safe space is my fur babies, my pets, right? I go home, and I just start talking. And they're looking at me, and, they're staring at me, and they're like, what is she talking about? But I know they're listening because they're staring at me. Right? And then once it's all out, I feel better. And I know people laugh at me, but it's true, right? Everybody has their own psychological safe space.
That's a great example of, because I was just talking, like I said, to my sponsor that was on the segment right before this, and we was talking about how most people just want to be heard. A lot of people, and that's why I tell people all the time, like, you can come vent to me, right? Like, because I'm not going to give you advice. I'm not going to tell you what to do. I'm just going to listen. Listening is the most important thing in a conversation or communication. And so your fur babies, they're not going to give you advice. They're not going to talk back to you. They're not going to tell you what to do. They're just listening. The simplest thing.
That is absolutely right.
And when you're talking, and that's why I say most people just want to be heard, because if you just let people talk, they're going to talk through it. And then something's going to click, and they're going to feel so much better.
Mm-hmm. Or they'll figure it out in their process, right?
Right.
So, yeah, and, honestly, to be fair, sometimes when I'm talking to friends and I'm sharing things, they do try to give advice. We're all like that. Yeah. I'm like that too, right? I mean, we have a tendency. And sometimes I'm just like, just need you to listen. And that's why my fur babies work for me. My pets work for me. Because,
They don't talk back?
Well, that's not quite accurate. Some people who are pet owners out there, they do talk to you at times.
Yeah.
Right? But, in their body language, in the way, they either, if you have a cat or whatever, they're purring, they're just trying to make you comfortable. They're trying to give you and show you love, right? So everybody has their own psychological space, but yeah, I mean, to figure out what baggage we're carrying that we shouldn't, you got to talk it through. You're absolutely right. But you know what? It's feeling safe in the place to do that, right? And not everybody feels safe.
No, you have to have that one person, like you said earlier, that support.
Yeah.
Most of us don't have it, but you have to find it.
And it's hard sometimes.
It is.
And sometimes it may take, you can try with different people until you find that one person.
And you know what? And I feel like I have the support now, especially with this CAP class. Like I have a couple of people from that class that calls me all the time, checks on me, and asks if I want to talk, or But it's also hard that that they're there, but it's still hard to make that call because you don't want to bother nobody.
Because you don't want to feel like you're burdening anybody.
Exactly. Yeah. Mm-hmm. So that's a challenging part. That's still a challenge for me. Like, matter of fact, when I came in here today, I don't know why Brenda over here at Pretty Little Poppy, she came up to me and she was like, "Mike, how are you doing?" And because when I walked in, she asked me, and I was like, "Oh, I'm doing all right." But then she followed me in here to the studio, and she was like, "No, how are you doing?" She was like, "Mike, you can talk to me anytime." So it's things like that, and it's like, I know I can call Brenda, but do I want to burden her because I know what she goes through and running her place, and everybody has their own struggles. So sometimes I don't want to burden people.
And then what do you do?
Then I go to my jokes of joys, where I know like I love reading now. Mm-hmm. Like the book that I'm reading right now is called "Breaking the Habit of Being Yourself." Talks about neuroscience, oh my God, what's the word?
I don't know. You tell me. What's the word?
Oh my God. It talks about the quantum physics and neuroscience and your brain.
Oh my gosh! Now you're getting like really out there for me, but
it's incredible.
Oh, okay.
I'm very intrigued with it. No, goodness. Because I was just telling somebody earlier, like once you start understanding how your brain works, then you have an understanding of why people do the things they do, why you react to certain things, and because from our prefrontal cortex, that's how we all live, anyways. Yeah, it's all from our memories and our experiences.
That's true.
And my favorite Buddha quote is, "You only speak of what you know from your prefrontal cortex." But if you listen, you're gonna learn something.
I like that. I'll have to remember that.
You know what I mean? But see, that makes sense. That's what I'm saying. If you really start to understand how the brain works, like that's how we live every day. It's familiarity. Thank you.
You're welcome.
I can't talk today. But like when you get out, when you go to work or when you go to school or wherever you're going, you get up, you get out of the same side of the bed every day, right? You have a morning routine. You pull out of your driveway, you drive down to your street the same way. So everything's familiar. Mm-hmm. That's how you're living your life. You go down the same street all the time to go to your job. You don't take different streets. You go down the same street. Everything that's familiar with you.
Okay, so can I just share something with you?
Yes.
Some of us are a little different. We like to take different routes.
Do you take different routes?
I do.
Do you?
I do. It's like that freeway analogy,
okay,
right?
But see,
I like to see new things.
That's that leadership in you. No. You want to explore.
No. That's that. You know what? I think some of us know that, part of the well-being classes, we took a character strengths survey, right? And one of mine was creativity. That was my number one. And I can understand now at the time when I saw creativity, I'm like, how does that, what does that mean? What does that mean? There you go, right? And
I got creativity.
There, see?
Curiosity.
Yeah, so I have love of learning, creativity, and, leadership, bravery, leadership. But I have to tell you something. I love the creativity of going to different places and learning about other things that are around me. Mm. So yes, some people like the familiar path.
No. Okay, so let me rephrase that, because it's not about what you like, and it's not about your creativity. Mm. It's what you're used to.
Right.
Right. So, like for instance, when you leave the Antelope Valley and you go down to LA, mm-hmm. How do you go?
Sometimes I take the Pear Blossom Highway.
Okay.
Over the Angeles Forest. Mm-hmm. Sometimes I take the 14 to the 5. Sometimes I take the 14 to the 10.
But
to
you
the
take
2.
But you take the 14.
Every once in a while, I try to stay off the 14.
Yeah.
But yeah. And I like taking Sierra Highway all the way through Santa Clarita. So yeah, see, that I know.
My point is,
okay, what's your
most
point, Mike?
people do things because it's familiar. They take the same road, they get dressed the same, they maybe brush their teeth first, maybe didn't eat breakfast, didn't have coffee, or whatever their morning routine is. They do the same thing every day over and over because of their prefrontal cortex, because it's their experience. Mm-hmm. So it's everything that they're familiar with. Mm-hmm. It's not that they want to or their curiosity. It's what they're familiar with.
And they're comfortable with that.
Exactly.
Mm-hmm. And I'm comfortable with the uncomfortable, I guess.
But that's great, though. That's not a bad thing.
I don't know. Sometimes I'm
I
like,
think that's
maybe
why
I
you're,
should have done that.
Well, I think that's why you're a fixer.
Okay.
Because you know how many different
We'll get off that topic right now, real quick. But yeah, I mean, I like the exploration. I like to explore. And sometimes, I don't know about you, but sometimes I love where we live. We have the mountains right in back of us, right? The Angeles, National Forest. So sometimes I like to just get in my car on the weekends, and even if it's I'm usually by myself, and I just drive up, and I find all these beautiful little campgrounds. There's lots of lakes up there that a lot of people don't know about. I like to do the exploration thing. I like to do that and go on hikes on my own. And the reason why is because it keeps me, if you will, feeling like I have beautiful things around me, and there's always something new. And there's always something that, is worthwhile to learn and to explore. So I always, a lot of my friends, I'm like, come with me. And, they know me at this point, and they say, okay, you're not going to stop until I say yes, right? I'm like, exactly. Yeah. So, but as a result, we get to try new restaurants. We get to try, new things. And that's, for me, I think that's what keeps me, if you will. Those are my jolts of joy. Mm-hmm. That keeps new experiences happening for me, right? No matter what is going on in my life, there's always something new, which is kind of, for me, cool. But everybody's different, right? Everybody's different. And again, in the leadership, and you probably experience this too, when you're in leadership and you're trying to do community work, a lot of times people may be saying to you, I shouldn't say a lot of times, sometimes people say, well, you're not doing enough, right? You're not doing enough, or, you should be doing this. And I always share with the folks that, I'm working with or partnering with, that, you know what, you're doing just fine. Mm-hmm. Because if there's something that somebody thinks you're not doing, they can either help you do it, or they can share some experience that they have that can help support you to do it, right? Or they can help do it for you, right? So my thing with young folks that are wanting to become leaders or managers and supervisors, and part of the coaching that I do is, you know what? If you want to help your team grow, you have to be willing to listen to what they want to tell you, but it doesn't always necessarily mean you have to agree with them. Mm-hmm. Right? You can agree to disagree. Right. And constructive criticism is good, but sometimes as a supervisor, as a manager, as a leader, sometimes you're going to have to let them do it, even though it may not work. Even though it may not work, you may have to let them learn that lesson themselves. I agree with it. And be there to pick up the pieces to help them, right? Because sometimes they have to learn for themselves. And I've always, I always say in leadership, you end up praying a lot. You end up praying a lot because you want to let your team grow, and in order to let your team grow, you got to let them do it sometimes. But you know what? I actually just did that last week on my new show that I did. Uh-huh. My partner, he hasn't done a show in, I want to say, 4 or 5 years. So when I hit the record button, I was like, all right, come on, let's go. He was like, wait, I'm not ready. And I was like, nope, let's go. Like, because I did that because I wanted to see how he was going to perform under pressure. Mm-hmm. And he actually did pretty well. Mm-hmm. I knew he was a little nervous, but he did pretty well. And so I get what you're saying. Like, sometimes I do that with people because I want to see how well they're going to do. Well, it's basically what I don't like to say pushing, but you're nudging them. Yeah. You're nudging them to go beyond what they think are their boundaries so that they can actually see that they are capable of doing more.
Right.
Right? And for me personally, I feel like sometimes I get stuck, so that's why I'm always looking for new challenges, right? Because getting stuck and doing the same old doesn't work for me either. You know, it gets kind of boring, actually. Yeah. So, you know, that's why the beauty of community work is there's always something good happening. There's always something positive happening, right? Something for us to support. And here in the Antelope Valley, there's a ton of stuff happening.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so, you know, there's always volunteer opportunities. You just have to be willing to look for the volunteer opportunities, right? And you and I both know when you volunteer and at the end of a good volunteer effort, don't you feel good? I always feel good. Do you feel good?
100%.
Yeah.
Yes.
And you met new people.
I mean, new people, yeah.
Yeah, new
Building
friends.
relationships with other people,
Right.
yeah. I like it.
So can I go back to what kind of leader you think you are?
I don't know. It's hard. You know what? It's hard to answer that question with you because I already know the answer to it. But so
Yeah, but
I
I'm
don't.
not. Who do you? I mean, you know, there's different types of leadership. So, what kind of leader do you think
I
you
feel
are?
like I am a hands-on leader. Like I'm not the type of leader to say, "Hey, you go do this, you do that." Like I'm in the trenches with you.
Okay.
I'm more of a lead by example.
Okay.
That's what I feel. Like I feel like I lead by example. Like I would never ask you to do something that I won't do or can't do.
That's good leadership.
Yeah.
You don't ever ask anybody to do something you won't do yourself.
Exactly.
Right.
Yeah. I feel like I do hold that.
And what type of leaders do you work best with? Because, you know, sometimes when you have a room full of leaders, they don't always have the same opinion, right? They don't always see the same vision the same way.
Trust me. I'm going through that right now. I do know this very well.
So, you know, sometimes you can have very different visions. You know, same goal, but different visions and how to get there, right? And that's where sometimes conflicts happen. But what kind of leaders do you work well with, do you think?
I guess it depends on the project or what I'm doing.
Okay. Let's say you're doing a multicast podcast, right? On the same subject, and it's you know 3 different communities at the same time, and you have 3 different people that have 3 different ideas. How would you work with that?
Me personally, I would listen to all 3 ideas first, get everybody's opinion on what would work and what would not work, what wouldn't work. And the solutions behind them. If someone was to say, okay, I would want to do it this way, but if I'm like, okay, I don't believe that'll work, then what's the solution? Like, you got to explain to me why it won't work or why you don't think it'll work.
Would part of it, though, be figuring out what the ultimate objective is?
Yes.
Okay. And having that conversation? Okay. You know, that's sometimes not so easy.
It's not.
That's sometimes not so easy.
It's
right?
not. I actually just went through a situation with that just the other day, and I had a so-called leader hang up on me. Like, okay.
You know what? For any of us that have done this, if you haven't had someone hang up on you, something's not right. Somebody has to hang up on you. I mean, think throughout the career.
Like I was honestly, I was kind of over the conversation because I saw where the conversation was going, so I was kind of over it. And I was like, they asked me, "Am I okay?" And I'm like, "I'm good."
But were you really?
I told him I was disappointed, but I said I'm good. Because I'm the type of person like, okay, if you're not going to do it, I'll do it. Again, going back to like, I would never ask you to do something I won't do. And I learned that my mentor taught me that a long time ago. And that's why I have a lot of skill sets. I can do my job or run a production. I can run everything by myself because I'm not going to sit there and wait on you. If you're not going to do it, then I'll do it. So with this conversation, I was asking this person to do something and they were just like, they wouldn't do it for whatever reason. So when they asked me if I was good, I said, you know what, I'm a little disappointed, but I'm good. I'll do it. You know, but they got mad at because I said I was good. I think they wanted me to beg them or something. And I was like, I don't chase nobody or beg nobody. So they hung up on me.
That's interesting.
Yeah, no.
That would be a conversation that I would say wasn't quite as healthy.
It wasn't healthy. And that's why I said I was over the conversation, because I saw where it was going. Because to me, I was already over the conversation a week prior, because we had addressed it in the email. So for me to even have this conversation over the phone, when I thought the phone call was supposed to be about something else, I was over it. So that's why I said I thought I saw where the conversation was going. It was going backwards, and I was trying to move forward. And I was like, that's why I said, you know what, I'm good.
So then let me ask you a question. That's sometimes we have to put boundaries around ourselves, right? So how do you put boundaries around yourself when you're working with somebody like that?
One, I expressed my intent and intentions, and I was very clear about it. And I even apologized more than I should have, but.
So why'd you do that?
Why?
Yeah, why'd you apologize?
Because sometimes I know accountability.
Okay.
I can see the mistake that I made, and my part of it, I should say.
And you were willing to acknowledge that.
Exactly.
Okay.
And I'm always willing to acknowledge that, because I know it takes two people to have a miscommunication or a misunderstanding. Maybe I delivered something wrong, delivered to you wrong, and I'll take responsibility and accountability for that. So.
And when did you learn that? When did you learn how to manage that?
Manage it?
Yeah. I mean, you just basically said that you're taking accountability for it. So at what point in your life did you figure out that that's what you had to do?
Doing therapy.
Okay. I appreciate that. Thank you for saying that.
No, therapy.
Yeah.
Therapy taught me a lot, yeah.
Okay.
But a lot of people don't realize that when you're taking accountability for your actions, it's not for the other person.
Right.
That was for me.
Right.
Like,
you're absolutely right about that. Yeah.
Like, for instance, with my dad, I never had a relationship with my father, and he passed away maybe like 5 years ago, I think. So 3 months prior to that, I finally made peace with him to him passing away. But it was for me. It wasn't for him. Like it was all for me. And I live my life like that now. Like when I'm apologizing to you, I'm doing that for me, not for you.
And I agree with you. And part of it is for ourselves, right? And how I would express it, the way I express what you just said was, I have to manage my own expectations, right? I need to manage my expectations of the other person. And sometimes I may be unrealistic in my expectations of the other person, right? And so when I hear them talking, it's like, well, wait a second. Maybe, I need to readjust, because maybe what I was thinking that they could do or should do, or, I want them to do, was not realistic of me. Right? So I constantly am going back and managing my own expectations so that I can help be supportive of somebody else to succeed. Because if I can't manage my own life and my own expectations, then that means that, I'm going to consistently set people up and myself to fail. No, and I don't want to do that.
That's one thing that I learned in therapy. I learned that we have to accept people for who they are, not who we want them to be.
Exactly. And that sometimes, and especially in relationships, that's not always so easy.
It's not.
It's not always
but
so easy.
But I'm glad you brought up expectations, because I remember having a conversation with you early on, and you asked me about my expectations towards another person. And ever since you said, like, when I listen to people, especially people like you, like, things stick with me. And that has always stuck with me. So now when I do get into some type of conflict or whatever with another person or coworker or teammate, whatever, I do sit back and reflect, okay, what were my expectations of this person?
And it could be the fact that they didn't understand what your expectation was of them, right? I mean, sometimes and to be fair, I do that sometimes, and I expect, big things from people, and sometimes it's small steps to get to that big thing, right?
Right.
And that means that I need to manage my own expectations of how we're progressing forward.
Right.
And that means managing myself.
But, it's easy to fall into that loop. And I'm going to tell you why, because a lot of people talk a big game, but their actions show very small. But so when someone is talking a big game, then now we have these big expectations, right? But we have to learn, okay, I need to see actions first.
But here's what I would this is a little twist to that.
Okay.
I would say you can start off with a big vision and big expectations and big ideas, right? Sometimes it's baby steps or small steps. I wouldn't say baby steps, small steps to get to that bigger vision. And sometimes it's like you're climbing a mountain. You want to reach that peak, right? Mm-hmm. To plant that flag at the top of the mountain. But every so often you reach this plateau, right? This resting point.
Right.
And then you kind of have to reevaluate. Do I have all the tools? Do I have everything I need? Do I have the supplies to get to the next place, the next plateau before I can reach that peak? And sometimes it's adjusting and saying, wait, I don't have all the equipment that I need, right? So how can I get that equipment? What do I need? What additional things do I need so that I can continue that climb? And for me, it's always make sure when you're managing, you have your benchmarks, right? You got to have your benchmarks to get to that big vision, and stop thinking just because you're not there immediately, you're going to end up, failing. It's not a failure. You've had successes.
Right.
You just need to be patient and manage your expectations on when you get there. That's kind of how I feel about things.
Oh, I say it all the time. I feel like you listen to my show a lot. I say that a lot.
I do listen.
I tell people to have, big goals, right? But don't have these big actionable steps. Like take the smaller steps because they make the biggest impact.
Yeah. The benchmarks. Make sure that you're successful with, benchmarking your success. But so, Mike, you know what? Ask me any question because I've been asking you a lot of questions. So go ahead and ask any question.
Oh, great, Jack. I had a list right here.
Oh, no.
I was wondering when I was going to be able to get to my list.
Oh.
Because between you and Nicole, the lady that was here earlier, she actually wants to do a podcast. She wants to come on my show because she's been on my show, but like little tiny segment. Mm-hmm. But she wants to do a show with her interviewing me.
I think that's a good idea.
I thought it was a great idea.
Yeah, there's a lot. I mean, we can continue I can continue to interview you right now. Would you like me to do that?
No, because you ask hard questions. I want to know. One, I want to know. I have a couple of questions, but the first one is, when did you know that you had these leadership skills? Not at what age, but like in point of your life, like when did you?
You know what? I wouldn't say I recognized they were leadership skills. I recognized that I had a specific skill set, and that I was acquiring specific skill sets with every job, with every community activity. I learned something. So I always felt like if I could learn something from something I was doing, right? I was acquiring experience. So I didn't, honestly, Mike, I didn't necessarily think they were leadership skill sets. They were just experiences that I could share with people and insight that, I could help support people with. And so you call it leadership skills. I just call it experience and expertise.
So you're just humble about it.
No, that's really how I feel about it. No, seriously. Leadership skill sets, leadership qualities, it depends on who you're talking to, and what they think is a leadership quality, right? Different people have different, definitions of what a leadership qualities are, right? And so from my perspective, it's if you're able to help someone or support someone with the experience that you've gained, then, that's a skill set. It's not necessarily, I wouldn't deem it necessarily a leadership skill set. It's just a skill set. It's experience. Trial and error sometimes that you've learned, right? You've learned the skill set through trial and error. But, and I appreciate when people say thank you for saying it was leadership skill sets, but you know what? It's just experience. It's called hard knocks, baptism by fire,
right?
That you learn all this stuff, right? And, I've been baptized quite a bit by fire. So.
Okay, so let me ask you this question then. Why is leadership important to you? Because you teach it.
So, leadership is when you're in the world of business, when you're in the world of, politics, when you're in the world of community, there's always got to be people that are willing to take the step forward, right? That may not be necessarily everyone. Like I said, there's quiet leaders that lead from, from behind. But there's always got to be a face, right? And people have to be willing to be that face. But a lot of times, like I said, we don't always support the person that takes that step forward. If something happens and it may be completely out of their control, but something happens that they are accountable for, and the world starts beating up on them, right? People scatter. And so for the the mentoring and the coaching, it's like preparing people to understand that you're not always going to be, praised, that you're not always going to have people show gratitude. If you're a leader, that means that sometimes you're going to have to hold people accountable. And those people are not going to be happy about it. And people don't like change. A lot of people don't like change. I learned that the hard way, right? It's like, even if it's positive change, they don't like change because, like you said, they're familiar, they're comfortable, right? So why change? Well, sometimes we do need to change in order to move forward.
Right.
And especially in our community, especially in the world of politics, especially in business. But a lot of people have a tough time with that. So leadership, the people who's the manager, the people that are at the front have to learn how to accept when things don't always, aren't always as good as they want them to be. And so giving them tools for when they experience those hardship is really important to me because, I understand what that's like. And it's hard when you come home at the end of the day and you look in the mirror or you kind of say to yourself, what was I thinking? Right? Why did I do that? What was I thinking? Right? And I always tell people at the end of the day, when you have that question, again, just look at yourself in the mirror and say, you know what? I know I did the best I could.
Right.
I did the best I could, and here are some tools for you to kind of make yourself feel a little bit better. And that is important because I don't think leaders aren't necessarily trained. They just kind of end up being leaders, right? They're not necessarily trained to be leaders. And then there are people who think they're leaders that do need the training.
Yes, 100% on that.
So I don't know. I hope that answers the question.
It does.
Okay, good.
It does. I always go into any type of decision making or like leadership role, already knowing that, you know what, I'm okay with the decisions I'm going to make, because I know I'm going to give it my best effort and do the best I can.
Good for you. Good for you. I mean, I think that if a lot of us had that mindset, we'd probably do a lot better.
But that's all you can do, the best you can.
That is true.
It's going back to expectations. If someone has a bigger expectation of you, like, that's on them, not you.
But have you ever thought to yourself, at the end of the day, I could have done better?
Well, yeah, we all can do better. There's always room for improvement. That's why, like on questionnaires or surveys, when they ask you 0 to 10, always go. I never go to 9 or 10 because there's always room for improvement. I'm never at a 10. If you're at a 10, then what's next? Like, there's nothing.
Well, that goes back to what we were saying. If you stop learning, you stop growing.
Right, exactly.
Right? Yeah. Next question.
You don't talk about leadership no more?
We can talk about leadership all day.
Okay.
And you know what? It's hard, and it's not easy to be a leader. So.
Okay. Well.
So thank you for all of you who are out there, taking that leadership role. It's not easy.
Thank you.
Yeah.
You make it look easy though.
Wow, I can't believe you just said that. No, I don't.
You really do. I mean, if anyone has ever sat and listened to you talk, you really do. You're easy on the ear. You make sense of a lot of things. Most people don't. Like, sometimes you can listen to people, and this goes into my next question about being a motivational speaker. Most people that think they're motivational speakers, it's hard to understand them. Like, I actually had, the reason why, I don't know if you know this story, how I started the whole podcast was because during the pandemic, we was doing Zooms. And I had a small group of people that I was coaching as far as like cryptocurrency and all that, right? And then I had another guy. My group was small, but he had a bigger group, and he was like my mentor, right? But we would do these Zoom calls once a week, like my group and his group together. And I had this one lady message me one day that was part of his group. And she was like, Mike, you and so-and-so says the same thing. She was like, but I can't understand him. Like, I don't know where he be going, but I understand you. Like, you make sense to me. And it was funny because she was like, even though your voice is funny, you make sense to me.
Your voice is funny?
Yeah, she said my voice was funny.
Okay.
I didn't know what to take it as a compliment or like what.
It was a compliment.
So, but I understood what she said, because even before all that, I used to listen to a bunch of interviews, like people that I just admire, like, Jay-Z, the Will Smiths, the, Eric Thomas, Mel Robbins, like all these people. I listened to their interviews, not their work, but their interviews, because I wanted to see what they were saying and how consistent they was what they were saying in their interviews. So I used to listen to a lot of interviews, but certain people I only connected with certain people. So when she said that to me, it just made sense. Like, wow, everybody's not going to listen to my podcast. Everybody's not going to connect with me. But as long as I get that one person that does it, it just makes me feel better.
Why do you think you connected with her?
I don't know. I don't know. Like, I never
Did you ask her?
No, I didn't. I never even met this lady. I think she was in another state somewhere. I've never even met her.
Oh, it'd be interesting to ask why she felt you connected with her. What was it about what you were saying that made her feel that, she understood you more so than the other person?
Yeah. Like I said, me and him, we both, because we was reading from the same, it wasn't a script, but we both was teaching the same thing. So we were saying the same thing. He just said it differently because of his style, and my style is just different. So we just delivered things differently. But she just connected better. Like, she understood me better. So
if somebody was to ask you, Mike, how do I connect with people when I'm speaking to them? What would you tell them? How can I, let's say a stranger came up to you and you were instructing them on a podcast, and they said, what's your best advice to connect with people?
Find someone that you can relate to. I mean, that's what I do. I find someone that I can relate to that kind of went through the same struggles that I did, to where I have something relatable now. Now I understand a little better on what they're saying and how they're saying it. Mm-hmm.
So when you see body reactions, facial reactions, right, eye contact, if you're in a room with a lot of people, you single out, right, a couple of people, and you kind of watch them and to see if they're getting what you're saying.
Yeah.
And if they're getting what you're saying, you're reaching somebody, right? And if they look like they're like not understanding or falling asleep or yawning, like some people do, then you got to change tactics, right?
Yes. But for me, when I'm speaking in front of a group of people, I really try to focus on, like, I try to find that one person that's present, right? That's present in the room.
Right.
And I try to stay on them.
Right.
Because if you look at it from a whole, especially from a new person that does, speaking, I just focus on one person.
Okay, you are not new at speaking. Don't even try to tell me you're new at speaking. You have a podcast. What are you saying?
You totally diverted this conversation back to me.
I did.
You just pulled what Brittany did on the last show, because she did the same thing. And this is new. A lot of my guests never done this before. All of a sudden, I feel like you guys got together and everybody just started asking me over the last few shows. People started asking me questions. I'm like, that's not what this show is.
So you just need to know, I do watch your show.
I know you do.
And I do listen. And so, sometimes it's good to hear from you what your experiences are. And so I came with intent today.
You did?
I did. I came with intent to answer your questions that you had for me, but also to get to have people hear a little bit more about you.
But I feel like people know me.
You know what? People say that, but there's always something new about a person.
That is true.
Because
we grow every day.
That's right. But also, if you're listening and there's different people trying to have that conversation with you, sometimes it comes out differently.
That is true.
Right?
That is true.
So, did you answer my question or did you divert it back?
I diverted it back because I wanted to know about your motivational speaking. Like,
I
wanted to know, like, where did that come from?
That came from, I worked, as some people may know, as you know, I worked in the world of politics.
Yes.
And so I, represented my elected official, the elected officials I worked for. So I was constantly making presentations, and I was constantly going out and doing community meetings. And so the motivational speaking for me was, how do you get a group of constituents that are out there that are not happy about something? Right? How do you turn that situation around to the end of the meeting, and then all of us saying, okay, we don't completely agree, but we get it.
Right.
Right? And that to me was, I think, the birth of me trying to, motivate people to think differently. It was me trying to, find a way to connect with people, to have them see things at a bigger picture, at a broader spectrum. And, to have them feel better about themselves when they walk out of the room, or better about the situation before they leave. They may have walked into the room thinking, this is horrible, it's all negative, and then having them walk out feeling, well, maybe this isn't so bad, or, boy, this is really terrific. I think that was the start of the motivation, and part of it was also the team that I work with and the people that, I used to partner with and who used to work with me and for me. Part of it is, how do you have conversations with them that motivate them to be better than themselves, better than they think they can? Right? And so, and a lot of times it started out for me in one-on-one conversations with team members. And it's like asking them what they wanted to do, and then helping and supporting and motivating them to try and achieve that. So that's where that came from.
Nice. Great answer.
Oh, good. Okay. Okay.
What else? I know you dying to ask me another question.
No,
I can feel it.
I'll be good in the sense that, well, okay, so you said, so I am going to ask, right? So in 2024, what is the one big thing you want to accomplish and achieve?
In 2024?
Yeah, this year. This new year, brand new year. We're only in the second week.
I know.
Well,
I supposed to have this already written down?
Yeah. Yeah, should have been part of the New Year's resolution, but go ahead.
I just actually had that conversation. So I don't really do New Year's resolutions.
Okay, forget the New Year's resolution. What do you want to accomplish? What's the big thing you want to accomplish? Now, not for the community, not for yourself.
For myself?
For yourself.
I want to. It's a hard question to answer.
Why is it a hard question to answer?
Because I just want to. That's why I have New Year's resolutions. Like, I just want to be better every day.
That's a good answer.
Yeah, like I don't. It's nothing about material or, like you said, like the show or anything. Like, for me personally, I just want to be a better person every day. Like, I want to continue to grow.
And how are you going to make that happen for yourself?
By steady reading and learning and educating myself.
And having conversations with a whole vast amount of different people, right?
Yeah, of course. That goes without saying, though. Everybody knows that about me.
That's a good goal for 2024. That's a realistic goal, because a lot of people have unrealistic goals. Yeah,
and that's why I don't do the whole New Year's resolution, because everybody do that, and by the end of January, they're all gone. And
okay, we're not talking about New Year's resolution. Right. We're not talking about that.
But even like with the new year, like I don't like people. Okay, new year, new me, and all that, and it's like, no, I want to start today and be a better person for the continuance of my journey, whatever that is.
Okay.
Like, it's not about a new year or nothing. It's like, I'm starting today. Like,
and you're going to do, every day you wake up, it's going to be a new process, right?
Yes.
New adventure, right?
Yes. And learning how to struggle well through all of this.
We got back to well-being. Okay.
Yes. No. But you know what? Seriously, like this past week, I actually, this was the first week that I actually went through a roller coaster ride, right? Like I think I went through every emotion this week. But I'm so proud of myself because look how happy I am. Like, I struggled well through it. And
that's what it's all about, isn't it?
Yes.
Right?
Like, I really struggled well through it. And I
struggle well, function effectively, correct?
Yes, 100%. And that's like the other day I was thinking about that. I was like, wow, I just went through a roller coaster week, but I got through it and I got through it effectively. Like,
and so well-being, the term for well-being is?
Well-being.
You just said it.
Well, yeah.
It's struggling well,
Struggling
functionally. Oh my gosh! Now you gave it to me.
I gave you what?
I did the tongue twisters here. It's basically
well-being is the what?
It's basically functioning well.
No, but I'm trying to think of the phrase that they use. Well-being is the function. No, oh my God, Lisa, you just did this to me.
It's basically you're struggling well, functioning effectively. That's really what it is.
Oh no, but what's the other saying?
I don't know, but that's the one we use. That's the one I use. So, whenever I'm struggling well, because, it's a struggle sometimes for some of us every single day, right? Yeah. Sometimes it's harder than other days. But, no matter what happens, every day we get up, we're going to face some kind of challenge. And it's how we struggle through the challenge, right? Mm-hmm. And then get through it on the other end. That is something that I think I actually did come away with through the positive well-being classes that we took, right? That it's okay to not be okay, but I always end up saying it's okay to not be okay, but just don't stay there.
I tell people that all the time.
Yeah, just don't stay there.
Some people don't believe me, though.
Why don't they believe you?
I don't know, because they're still there.
Well, you know what? They have to decide when for themselves.
No, I get that part.
But I have no more questions for you, so thank you for answering all my questions, Mr. Mike.
So I actually wrote, because, at the end of our class, we had to write what well-being meant to us. Mm-hmm. So I had to write it down.
I want to hear it, so tell me. Share it with me.
Well-being is the heart and soul of positive psychology. It gives us the tools to thrive and function effectively through our daily ups and downs in life so that we can feel good and struggle well.
And there you go. That's a good explanation.
Yes.
That's a good answer. So, again, thank you, Mr. Mike, for having me on the show. I've enjoyed myself. I've enjoyed having you answer questions for me. I really appreciate it.
I thank you for the questions.
And thank you for letting me share, some information with folks. I think that what you're doing is really important.
I appreciate that. Thank you. Thank you for coming here. And thank you for being a friend.
You know what? Feeling is mutual. And, I'll come back anytime you ask me and, we'll laugh. We'll have a great time.
Well, as we always do.
Exactly.
We have great conversations, and I appreciate you for them.
Exactly.
But I do got one more thing for you.
Uh-oh. Okay.
You have to leave me with something.
What's that?
A thought, a quote.
A thought or a quote.
Something you want to leave.
You know what? We can always be better than we are today. We can dream, we can achieve our dreams and accomplish our dreams as long as we believe in ourselves. And that may not always be easy, but it's something that we know that we have to do for ourselves. And so be kind to yourself. Be gracious to yourself. And, and when you don't feel okay, just remember, when you're kind to other people around me, around you, around us, that kindness will come back tenfold.
Yes.
Does that work?
That was beautiful. Okay. I loved it. Thank you.
Thank you.
Absolutely, thank you. No, thank you for blessing me today with your presence, as always. I truly appreciate it.
I'm grateful for you, Mike. Just know that. I'm grateful that you are in this world with us. So thank you.
Oh, thank you. It means a lot. Coming from you.
Bye, everybody.
Bye, you guys. We're out of here.